What's up guys, how you doing? Welcome to another video. So today we are talking back button focus. That's right, we're talking about it again. I did a reaction video just the other week where I watched Chelsea and Tony Northrup's video and I talked about it. It was interesting, it sparked some comments, some discussion in the comments section. I made a really old video about back button focus as well. It was a long time ago, so I thought I would talk about it today, specifically addressing some of the comments I got and some of people's thoughts that I guess frankly I disagree with. Discuss some other points which I see the point, but I think some of the people who made the points haven't fully thought it through, and I just thought I'd share with you why I still think back button focus is a really good way to go. So first of all, just a quick refresher on what it is. Basically, with most cameras, when you get them out of the box, or the general default setting, are that when you half press the shutter button, your camera will focus. You then press that all the way in and it takes the photo. That's kind of the default focusing system for most cameras, Canon cameras specifically. Back button focus enables you to change the settings. Now, in most cases, it's pretty straightforward. You go into the menu on your camera, you scroll across, there's a section for customized buttons, and you can do two things. First of all, you can take off the focus from your shutter button so that all this does is presses the shutter. It no longer focuses. But of course, if you do that, you still need to better focus your camera. So then what you do is you set one of the buttons on the back. In most cases, especially with Canon, it will be this AF on button, and then you focus with that using your thumb. So at that point, you're now taking photos, releasing the shutter with your forefinger on here, and you're focusing with your thumb on the back button, hence the name back button focus. So why would you want to do that? Well, for me, the biggest benefit is that it totally disassociates your shutter from your focus. It means you have two different controls for two different tasks. And for me, that's pretty much always going to be the best way to go. I want to have the most control over my camera that I possibly can. It's why I shoot most of my sports in manual. This gives me the opportunity to totally control what I want the camera to do. Now, as I mentioned before, I use this in every aspect of photography, but it's especially useful in sports photography because what I can do, I combine this with continuous focus or AI servo focus for Canon cameras, AL servo as it is known on this channel, AI servo mode. What you can do is you can hold your thumb on that button and that camera is focusing, so you can track someone along. You're focusing. I don't need to let go of this button at all. I just track them and I focus them. When I'm ready to take the photo, bang, I press that shutter button. I don't have to do anything in between. There's no risk that when I press this shutter, it's going to start to refocus on something else. It's going to try to jump to another point if I haven't lined up my focusing point. I'm focusing, take the photo. If I want to shoot a burst, if I'm in high speed mode, I focus, I press, I'm letting off a burst of shots. That's the biggest thing for me, is it separates. There is no risk, and I've had this before. I should say I've used the shutter button to focus before I switched to back button focus. And there were a few occasions when I had that. I would be focused on something, and then maybe I'd let go of the shutter button, and then when I was ready to take my photo, I'd go in, and it would try to refocus, and that annoyed me. And I had that a few times. I missed shots because of it, especially back on my older 72. In fact, this is the 72 I've got in my hand right now. Now, the other benefit that you get is the ability to focus and recompose. Now, this was one of the points that caused a lot of discussion, but still, I'm going to explain what it is first. If you use single center point focus, which is what you should probably be using for the majority of sports photography, you can focus on something and then you might want to recompose. So maybe you want the thing that you focused on to be to the side of your frame or something like that. If you focus and recompose, then you press that shutter again, it's going to refocus on the center of your image. Of course, with back button focus, it's not going to do that. I focus on what I wanted to focus on, I recompose my image, I press the shutter button, and it's just going to take the photo. It will not try to refocus unless I press the button on the back. Now, that's going to be really key for a lot of you DSLR shooters. One of the big things I got people saying to me was, well, hang on, mirrorless cameras have facial tracking and you don't need to worry about recomposing. Well, that's a point that I take on board. But first of all, that isn't going to apply to a huge majority of viewers on this channel because you're not using mirrorless cameras. But even then, if you are using mirrorless cameras and you're shooting sports work, like I know a lot of you guys are, you do not want to rely on that facial recognition software in a lot of focusing situations for sports. I've done videos all about this. In fact, I did a video too, I'll link it right here, where I tested out the R6 for sports and we tried using the facial recognition tracking. Now, I'm going to say, that is fantastic, right? The facial recognition and the way it locks onto faces and even eyes is fantastic. And that system is getting better in the R3. It's going to be even better in the R1. But in my experience, in some sports situations, where it's really crowded and you've got a lot of faces and those faces start crossing over with each other, that tracking is going to lose track of where it is. It's going to jump faces and you're no longer be focusing on the person you want to focus on. Because I can't afford that to happen when I'm shooting busy sports, what I do is I don't use the facial recognition tracking in that situation. I use single point focus, therefore I know I'm going to be following the player that I am following, and when I'm ready to press the shutter button, I press the shutter button. I'm not having to worry about it jumping focus to something else because I'm controlling where the focus point goes. Again, it jumps back to my point that I want as much control as I can. Now, I should say, I still use it, especially if I'm shooting things like managers on the sideline or a single player warming up or something like that. Then I use it. I switch into it. I've got the star button on the back of my camera set to change focus modes. I switch into it, I focus, and then I do use it. But I don't rely on it in busy sports situations. To show you what I mean, I'm going to set up a little scene right here with some of my Lego characters. That's right, we've got Lego characters right here on the channel. And I'm going to show you what I mean. I'm just going to move some of the characters around. Now, I shot this earlier and I did it on my GoPro, so I apologise it's not fully in focus. But you see the point. The facial recognition software is jumping around between people as they cross over back and forth behind each other. And so for me, that's just an example why that type of autofocus system isn't going to work all the time if you guys are shooting sports. If you're shooting a single character, or maybe you're shooting birds, for example, wildlife, things like that, it might work fine for you. So I'm not going to say it's for everybody, but in certain situations it isn't going to work for you. I had somebody else say to me, well, if it was better, Canon would just set the cameras like that out the box. And okay, I take on board that point, but it just doesn't work like that. For much the same reason that when most cameras come out the box from Canon, they are set to the fully automatic mode. If you go through the settings, a lot of them are set to some of the auto settings. And that's quite simply because the setting that is going to be the most suitable for the majority of generic photographers is not going to be the best settings for people in certain situations. People shooting sports like me will use different settings to people shooting landscapes. The best landscape photographers in the world will use a very different setup with all of their settings than the best sports photographers in the world. And so the way that Canon do or don't set up their cameras as they come out the box really has no relevance. That is up to you and how you want to set up your camera to get the best from the photography situation that you are in. Now, look, two caveats to this. First of all, I am going to say this isn't for everyone. Not everyone's going to want to use this. It takes a long time to get used to it. There are other good sports photographers. For example, Mark Curtin. You guys watch his channel. I know a lot of you do anyway. If you don't, you should be checking it out. It's great to see him back shooting sports. He's back pitch side. I saw really pleased to see that a sports video coming from him. And I know full well that he does not use back button focus. He uses the front shutter button to focus. So it's not for everybody. If I see somebody, Mark or anyone else is using it, I'm not going to try and tell you you're wrong. You've got to go with what you think is best. For me, what I feel is best is back button focus. My second caveat to it, and I mentioned it just now, is that it takes a while to get used to. When I first switched to it, it took me a good few weeks to adjust. I kept trying to focus with the shutter button. It felt fiddly. But once I got the hang of it, I felt like it changed my world. I thought, whoa, and I haven't even thought about going back since. So it will take a while to get used to it. I do not recommend changing to this system, then go out and try and shoot an event tomorrow that matters to you. By all means, go and shoot an event tomorrow to practice and play around, but it will throw you off to start with. So please take some time to get used to it. And give it a bit of time, eh? Don't try it once and think, oh, this is weird, and switch back. Give it some time, see what you think, and then you can make your own informed decision for which one you think is best for you. Anyway, I hope that clears up my views and answers a couple of questions. If you disagree with me, look, please, by all means, let me know in the comments below. I'd much rather that we all shared opinion and then people can make a judgment for themselves. If you like the video, whether you agree with me or not, if you like the video, do me a favour, hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't already, because it really helps me out on the channel. In the meantime, guys, thank you very much for watching. I will see you on the next video.